Hey guys, this is like take 372 of this video. So if this devotion, message, whatever you want to call it, does not touch your heart, you should have heard message number 10. It was awesome. I have proof of that, but the recording was too long. So went ahead and trimmed it down to today. What we're doing, we're going to go over what I sent out to you guys. Before I get into all of that, let me just kind of give you an idea of what the next couple of weeks are going to look like for us. We met last night with the staff and deacons, and we kind of talked through some of the all this going on with coronavirus and what should the next couple of weeks look like. It would appear that we are going to just out of respect for our government officials, the requests that they've put out, the safety of our people, and just trying to have some common sense. We don't want to live by fear, but at the same time, we do want to use wisdom and a sound mind as we approach these things. So what we've decided is that we are not going to have services, whether that's Sunday, Wednesday, Bible studies throughout the week. All of our events throughout the rest of March have been canceled. And so when we come back, we're going to reconvene, and it's looking like what we're hoping for is that the first Sunday in April will be our first time back together as a congregation. Now that means April 1st is actually a Wednesday, so we are not going to meet on April 1st. Our first time back together, just easy for you to remember, is going to be the first Sunday in April. That's what we're shooting for. If things get worse with all this, then we'll let you know. But as of right now, that's what we've decided. But I don't want you to worry about that. Like, I don't want you to be thinking, okay, well, Jake's not going to talk to us. Some of you might be happy about that. But Jake's not going to, be reaching out to us. Jake is going on vacation. Erica's, they don't care about us anymore. That is absolutely not true. Your small group leaders, I've been in contact with your leaders, and we're worried about you guys. We just want to make sure that you guys are doing all right, handling all this. I know that there are a lot of fears, anxieties, a lot of things that you're dealing with right now. Maybe not so much about the coronavirus, but just, you're hearing your parents talk about, jobs, cutting back hours, or, they're struggling to find, whatever maybe their needs are, with groceries and things like that. And so you're hearing, them argue, or you're hearing some fighting going on, and you're trying to figure out what all is happening. Listen, we want to be here as a youth ministry for you guys, and try to help out the best that we can, and provide some comfort in that, and provide spiritual growth still during this time. It's a really exciting time for me, to be honest with you. I know that some of it's scary, some of it sounds apocalyptic, and I told Erica, I said, you know what, we need to just watch some of these old zombie movies and just kind of sit back and enjoy our time where we got a little bit of extra time. Anyways, what we have kind of gotten to now is, videos like this. We want to take advantage of this. Things have gotten pretty sketchy when Jake has downloaded Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook back onto my phone. Like, let's just be honest, guys. Y'all know me. I'm not that guy. I'll get on there every now and then, but usually just delete the app right after I check everything out, make sure that everybody's doing good. I look for messages and things like that, or I'll send out a post and then I get off of it. That's been my go-to. But I downloaded all that stuff today so that we could start communicating through those things. I want to be able to reach out to you guys. I want you to be able to reach me easily. And anyways, I'm just rambling at this point. So you now know what our plans are. Be sure to reach out to us. Be sure to stay in touch with us. Some of you we've reached out to. All of you we've tried to reach out to. Some of you we have not been able to get a hold of. But anyways, if you're watching this and you haven't heard from us, just know that we love you. Know that we're praying for you, that we care about you. Now, getting into today. I wanted to make sure that you guys had some type of message, right? Like, I know y'all can get on YouTube, you can go find pastors that are way better than me, that have way more knowledge than I have, that are way more interesting than I have. Maybe they have their own camera crew that is able to record these things and make it look a little better. I am sitting in the youth Sunday school room and trying to make, I know a lot of you are like, where did that stuff come from? I even put this stuff out just for your entertainment, just so that you can look and say, hey, you know what? Jake is trying. Jake is trying. Maybe you're thinking Jake is trying too hard. I did not turn the air conditioner on over here. We're trying to save a little bit of money in the church right now, not knowing how things are going. So I didn't even turn the air conditioner on. So if you see me pouring sweat, it's because, man, I'm sitting here in the heat. But I want to give you guys just kind of a short message. Now, the time clock on this video is going to stay a little bit longer, but that's because of the introduction, talking about all that other stuff. So now begins the actual message time. Let me check my time. And we're going to try to keep this, about 12 minutes, okay? All right, so you guys, I sent out a text to all of you asking you, what do you want to hear about? And I gave you 4 options, and some of them were dealing with anxiety, dealing with temptation, different things like that. And what you chose, the majority of you chose, is how do I deal with difficult people? How do I deal with difficult people? So because you chose that, that's the topic that I want to deal with, okay? So today, that's what we're going to talk about. And what I want you to do right now, because you chose that, I know there is somebody difficult in your life. There's somebody in your life that you can think of right now that you're struggling with. Maybe it's a parent that is just acting crazy through all this stuff. You feel like they're just, they don't know what they're talking about. They're just being obnoxious. They're watching too much news, like all this stuff. Or maybe it's a friend of yours who is not, it could be totally unrelated to all that's going on right now. Maybe you've recently been in a fight with a friend, and you're trying to figure out this relationship that you have with them, or, just different things like that. It could be a boss, it could be a teacher, or whatever, and you're trying to figure out, man, how do I handle this as a Christian? How do I handle difficult people as a believer, and not get run over by them, but at the same time, try to, what does the Bible have to say about it? And so for me, when I look in the Bible, I love, obviously in the New Testament, there's a lot of just point blank, this is how you behave, this is how you handle things. In Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, this is what you should do, right? But I love looking in the Bible and finding examples where people in the Bible were going through some of the same things that I'm going through, the same things that you're going through. So I started trying to think about who are some people in the Bible that had to deal with difficult people. And David came to mind for me. So if you will, take your Bibles and turn to 1 Samuel chapter 24. 1 Samuel chapter 24. We're talking about dealing with difficult people. At this point, David has been anointed to become king. He's not king yet. He's been anointed to become king. He's defeated Goliath as a young boy. He has been kind of living in the palace with King Saul, and it seems like he's kind of serving as not only a servant, but really almost like a soldier. He's having victories over different battles and things like that. And as this progresses, I think a lot of times we think, okay, he was anointed king, he killed Goliath, he became king, but if that's your thought, you've missed a lot of David's life. The relationship that he had with King Saul was a pretty crazy one, pretty intense. And so anyways, he's living in the palace with Saul when Saul begins to become jealous of David and become jealous of the way the people viewed David. And he's thinking to himself, man, everybody's falling in love with this guy, and the only thing left for him is to just take the whole kingdom. And so you go through from chapter 18 to the point that we're at now in chapter 24, and you see how this relationship between David and Saul has just really deteriorated and become a very difficult one to deal with, right? And so now we pick up in chapter 24, and we see that David is in hiding. Okay, so David is hiding from Saul, and David, some of his own, this group of men and family members of David came to David when he went into hiding, and God just kind of miraculously brought these people who were under a lot of distress and a lot of sorrows, brought these people to David, and they became soldiers of David. And they went, these are 400 people, 400 men that met with David. And don't really know much about them other than they had debt, they had distress, and things like that. They were a troubled group. They're not the group that you would pick and say, hey, I want these guys to be my soldiers. But God brought them to him, and David was working with these guys. So anyways, now David and his men are in hiding together, hiding away from Saul. And Saul is out looking for them. He's out looking for these soldiers. And in chapter 24, we get to a point where Saul is like tired, right? And so he goes to take a nap, basically, in a cave. What he doesn't realize is that David and his men are hiding in the same cave. So Saul, the king, the enemy that is going after David, is now asleep inside a cave by himself without any of his men. And his enemy, this David, who is anointed to take Saul's place as king, David is sitting in that same cave with 400 of his own soldiers, right? And his soldiers are like kind of pushing him like, hey, today is the day. In verse 4, chapter 24, verse 4, the men of David said to him, this is the day of which the Lord said to you, behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand. And you can do to him as you see fit, as what is good to you. And David arose and secretly cut off a corner of Saul's robe. So David like sneaks over to where Saul is sleeping. And he just cuts off a corner piece of the robe. And it's almost like, well, why did he cut the robe and not the throat, right? Like, why did he spare Saul? And even in this moment, like, David felt guilty that he had even done that to Saul, if you read the verses after this. But when Saul gets up after his nap and he leaves the cave, none of the men had attacked. David kept all his men calm, would not allow them to attack Saul. Saul leaves, right? David comes out afterwards in verse number 8 and calls out to Saul. And when Saul turns around to see David, David actually bows down in front of him, okay? Bows down humbly in front of the king, right? And that's where we pick up. And so for you and me, as we look at this and we try to pull out some principles, how did David handle this difficult person in his life? The first thing that I want you to see is perspective. David had perspective, a point of view. He had a way of seeing, an attitude towards this situation. He had perspective. Look at verse number 9. It says, David said to Saul, why do you listen to the words of men who say, indeed, David seeks harm? And then he begins to explain to David, or to Saul, look, I was this close. He holds out the robe, like the corner piece of the robe, and he's like, I was this close to killing you, and I chose not to do it. My own men, in verse number 10, he says, my own men urged me to kill you, but I chose to spare your life. And in all this, the way I'm carrying myself, and yet you are going around trying to kill me. But here's the perspective. First of all, what's interesting to me is that David knew that Saul was just listening to other people. David knew that Saul had some influences in his life, people in his life that were telling him that, oh, David is trying to take your kingdom. David is trying to do this. David is trying to do that. And David says, why are you listening to the words of these men? Why are you listening to them? David had a perspective on this issue. And not only that, but if you read the verses prior, David refers to Saul as the anointed of the Lord in verse number 6. The anointed of the Lord. And he's like, I'm not going to fight Saul. I'm not going to do any harm to Saul because he is the Lord's anointed. That is perspective. That is perspective. To sit back at a point of view that says, you know what? I know I'm having a difficult time with this person, but God has placed them in my life. God has placed them in my life for a reason, so I'm not going to do harm. I'm not going to attack. He had perspective. Secondly, he had patience. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there that sit here and say, man, I do not have patience. I don't have patience. And they say it almost in a way that they feel like it's an excuse, a good excuse to be impatient. Listen, I don't have much patience is not an excuse for you to be impatient. I don't have much patience is not an excuse for you to blow up, to lose your temper, to say those negative things about that person, to talk bad about them behind their back. Like that is not an excuse. It's really more of it should be just more of a confession. I don't have very much patience. Well, that's something you need to work on. I don't have very much patience. Well, listen, like, I understand that's an area that a lot of people struggle with, but it's still an area that we need to improve on. We need accountability with. We need to work on that. David had patience. When I look at verse number 12, this is what he says. Let the Lord judge between you and me, and let the Lord avenge me on you, but my hand will not be against you. The cool thing about that verse to me is just that if David was worried about the here and now, David would have killed Saul in the cave. If David was impatient, he would have killed Saul in the cave. He would have listened to his men. He'd have had one of his men do it. Like, he would have dealt with the issue and became king right then. But he said, listen, because of his perspective, he said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to wait, and I'm going to let the Lord judge, and I'm going to let the Lord deal with Saul, and let the Lord set me up when he's ready. So David had not only a good perspective on the issue, but he had patience with this situation. And so for you, I would encourage you to have patience with your parents. Have patience with your siblings that you're in tight quarters with right now. Have patience with your teachers who are, learning a new way of teaching school. Have patience with your youth pastor who's trying to figure all this stuff out too. We need to have patience during a time like this. When you're dealing with difficult people, you got to have patience. You got to have perspective. You got to have patience. And here's the other thing. Unfortunately, it does not start with a P. I hate it. Focus. I thought about spelling it PH. Y'all know I would do it, but I decided not to do that. We need to have focus, guys. Focus. Now, what I love about this definition, now I understand, pay particular attention to something. That's what we're really talking about, right? Like, to pay particular attention. But this other part of the definition, to adapt to the prevailing level of light and become able to see clearly, that's talking about literally your eyes and the way when you walk into a room, the way your eyes adjust, right? Or the camera on this iPad that's recording right now, you have to it adjusts to the lighting. And if I have the wrong background on the slide, what I found out, if I go with all white on the slide, guess what? The whole room turns yellow for some reason. I don't understand that. I don't get that. But because of the lighting, it does some crazy stuff, right? When you go into a room, and I know we've all done this before, you walk into a room and the room is dark, and you walk in and like you just can't really see. You know which direction, because of memory, you know which direction you're supposed to go in, right? But you can't really see it. You have to stand there for a second for your eyes to adjust, and some of you probably don't have very clean rooms. I'm not judging, I've been there. But you walk into a room and you're waiting for your eyes to adjust so that you can get through the minefield of dirty clothes, or in my situation with my kids, Legos that are on the ground and Barbies and all these. I mean, it's ridiculous with them. But anyways, you're walking through and your eyes are adjusting to this situation, right? In life, with difficult people or difficult situations, the level of light changes, right? The lighting in the room changes. And you know which direction Jesus is in. Okay, Jesus is in this room with me right now. And I'm supposed to be focused on Jesus. But I don't see him. I can't see him. I know he's here, but I can't see him. What it is in that moment, you're having to wait on your spiritual eyes to adjust to the circumstance, to the situation. You're waiting on your eyes to adjust to that lighting in the room, to where you're able to see clearly. Sometimes that happens sooner, sometimes that happens later, but listen, God is still in the room. Allow your eyes to focus back in on Jesus. In this moment when you're dealing with difficult people, you've got to allow yourself to focus. For David, in verse number 15, he says, therefore, he repeats what he had said before, kind of, but he says, therefore, let the Lord be judge and judge between you and me, and see and plead my case, and deliver me out of your hand. He says this to Saul. he's got perspective. This is his enemy in everybody else's mind. But in David's mind, this is the anointed of the Lord. God placed him in my life for a reason. David had perspective. He had patience. But then, man, guys, he had focus. He had focus. He was not moving. He was not moving from the fact that he felt that God was going to handle the situation for him. And so, as you are dealing with difficult people, guys, I would encourage you to focus in on Jesus, focus in on God, and focus in on what God would have you do during this time. Hey, listen, how do I focus? How do I focus on what God is calling me to do? Some practical things for you guys, especially those of you that are in our youth group. You know the point system that we do. You know that we work with Word of Life. And so during this time where you're probably going to have a little extra time on your hands, those of you that have jobs, your jobs probably aren't maybe not calling you in as much, or those of you that all of you, your school that is now moving into online stuff, maybe you'll have a little extra time on your hands, right? Your parents aren't letting you go out in public right now. So you're in the house and you're bored and you're wondering, what do I do? I encourage you to work on some spiritual disciplines. Get caught up on your quiet times. Like, do your quiet times, get caught up. Do some scripture memory. We've sent out verses, the verses that you need to be memorizing. Work on those, memorize those. Write letters of encouragement and text messages. You can write on social media to somebody, encouraging them spiritually. Have a conversation with somebody. Right now, there are people in a panic over all this stuff. Maybe not just about the virus, but like I said before, my parents are fighting over all this stuff. I'm worried about how I'm going to pay my car bill, like all this stuff. You know what? Contact those people, especially those that are not Christians, and say to them, you know, what's getting me through this, dealing with this stuff, is just remembering that God is in control. You could share your testimony with them. That's a gospel conversation. So there are a lot of things that you could be doing right now. Reading a book, something from the book list. We've got books that we've given out to you guys that are available for you that are on that reading list. This would be a great time to do that. If you don't have one of those, you can read through the New Testament. That reading through the New Testament counts as 2 books on your reading list. So you get double points for it. So guys, there are things that you could be doing right now that honestly are things that you should be doing. But also there are things that will count towards points for camp, to get you a scholarship, a free ride to camp, or points, and also points towards, I believe, a scholarship for the Bible Institute. I mean, these are some awesome opportunities for you to take advantage of and to really just take it all in. Guys, I know at this point that I have gone over 12 minutes. I'm probably at like 25. I hope not. Oh, I hope not. But because I am not recording this again. This is it. This is it. Okay. Anyways, guys, I love you. SaltLight Youth Ministry. We are here for you. We are praying for you. If you need anything, contact us. Talk to us. If you are missing us, I know you're missing us. You quit acting tough. You miss me. Okay. Listen. FaceTime. Call us. Snapchat. Instagram. I know none of you have Facebook, but Facebook. You can get a hold of us. You've got my cell phone number. You've got Erica's cell phone number. We love you. We pray for you every day, and I just hope you get our heartbeat on that you are honestly a part of our family, a part of our heartbeat. We are excited about this opportunity to minister to you guys in new ways, and when we get back together, it's just going to be a family reunion. It's going to be a family reunion. We're going to be excited. Anyways, I'm rambling again. We're probably at 28 minutes now. Anyway, I love you guys. Talk to you later.